they should have kept Nocchak. I felt like Nocchak was a better player because he actually did more plays on the map. They would probably have better results or better performance.
클라이는 일단 정말 사람으로서 좋은 친구고 정말로 재밌는 친구예요. 제가 이렇게 좋게 말하면은 정말 재밌는 친구, 나쁘게 말하면 또라이.
The later the game goes, of course, you see these Fnatic comebacks, but they actually come from the enemy team making mistakes, not because they are doing really well.
카싱이라는 선수가 정말 잘 돌아다니고 게임에서 원딜러를 거의 버리다시피 하면서 돌아다니는 경향이 있기 때문에 저희가 이걸만 잘 준비한다면 아마 쉽게 이길 수 있을 것 같아요.
Every win is important. We don't want to drop any games.
We're coming to you live from the LCS studio in Berlin, Germany, where you see some Fnatic fans are always aplenty, and there is Lothar looking to avoid promo relegation with his team, his revamped team, Giants, after not getting off to the best start yesterday. And there is G2, fantastic victory of them yesterday over Vitality, looking to continue that streak here today. And while all of the playoff spots are locked, there's still a lot to fight for as we approach the end of this great split. Hello, I'm EpicSkillshot supporter alongside Mitch Kreppel-Voorspels and Martin de Fischo Lunge as we embark on 5 of the final 15 games before the race to Rotterdam begins. It's actually already on.
Yeah, I mean, so playoff is locked, but again, the seeding is important, and we're all pretty hyped for what's going to happen the next few weeks.
Yeah, like week 8, week 9, yes, people are locked in, but I'm kind of getting stadium. It's going to look sick. A lot of people there, and I think it's already sold out, allegedly.
No.
It's not?
Speaking of Rotterdam, if you weren't able to grab seats at the spring finals, we have got you covered.
This is news to me.
The second batch of tickets is going on sale this Monday, March 14th at 5 p.m. Central European Time via Ticketmaster. For all the details on how to join us in the Netherlands, in Nederland, head over to lolesports.com. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves, let's bring it back to week 8, where G2 Esports and H2K are sharing the top spot in the standings. Vitality now a game back in 3rd, while Fnatic have tied the Unicorns of Love in 4th. All playoff spots are out of the window now.
Yeah, because Fnatic Origin yesterday managed to win the game, so of course they're locked in top 6. Not really surprising, because they had to basically lose every game, and then one of the bottom teams would have to win all their games to kind of overcome them. So this is expected. Question is now, which team will you face in the quarterfinal? Because if you are number 6, you're obviously going to face the 3rd place team, which is right now H2K, or sorry, Vitality.
Yep.
Not an easy one.
And that may actually still shift, because if we see what's coming ahead of us today, Vitality playing, and this is that bracket that Defisha was talking about. Obviously 3 and 6 face off, then 4 and 5. And then there's a reseeding in the semifinal, really important. The highest remaining seed then, etc. gets put up against number 2 LCS seed. But anyways, what I wanted to talk about is that Vitality's playing against Fnatic today, and Fnatic right now is 2 wins behind them, but if they win and somehow make Vitality go 0-2 this week, then maybe we have an unexpected contestant for that top 3 slot.
Yeah, and whenever we talk to the teams, when you talk to Fnatic, you talk to Unicorns that were on the desk here, everyone is kind of like, yeah, we don't want to face that 3rd place team because the top 3 guys have been so strong this split. So it's all about just securing number 4 and number 5, and then you play most likely Fnatic or Unicorns of Love at the moment, which is technically easier than having to take on Vitality, H2K, or G2 in that quarterfinal. And everyone wants to make top 4, guaranteed a spot at Rotterdam.
Yeah, to play in that stadium, the race is on. Obviously, towards the bottom of the tables, the race for 7th is very real for those teams over there. Only Giants are out of that race, but Rocket, Splice, Elements, they can all still make that 7th, that safe spot. And we know that Elements is a team that likes to grab that spot.
But Splice, they took a big step forward. And how close is that race really, though? Because they're all going up against top 6 teams, I believe, and they haven't really shown a lot of good results. Maybe if Origin starts really failing hard right now and they go on like full tilt, they can start dropping games.
So they're just kind of failing right now?
They are kind of failing right
Problem
now.
is they won yesterday. You know, had they lost that super close game to Unicorns of Love, I think maybe there was a small chance, but
they have Xpacko now.
They have Xpacko, obviously, and the king is back, so, but if you are Elements, if you are Splice, that game yesterday, they meant everything. You see Splice were so happy after, even though they went on Twitter and said it wasn't the greatest game they played.
Downplaying it.
Yeah, downplaying it.
Doesn't matter how we win.
they won the game, and technically, none of these teams are supposed to win any game now. So technically, it should end with Splyce being number 7.
But it can happen, and they'll all have their chance later on. But first, it'll be G2 Esports up versus Giants. Elements will face the UOL as they chase that 7th place. Maybe they can get a win there. And then Fnatic square off against Team Vitality. Of course, Fnatic in better form after IEM beating the Giants yesterday. But this is the test to see if it's time yet, if they are good enough at this point to beat Vitality. I don't think so.
No, I agree with you. I think Fnatic still needs quite a few things before they're going to be on the level to really challenge Vitality and H2K and G2, but it is the best out of 1, so you can't surprise.
What if Vitality, would they have won IEM Katowice?
Vitality would have won it? No, they would have still lost to SKT, I think.
They would have made it a lot closer, though, in the final.
Yeah.
I'd definitely been able to take a game off of SKT.
Yeah, maybe, but the more important
Maybe
thing...
you say. Of
It was
course
a
they
banter
would.
question.
You say that, and then the Koreans show up and 3-0 you, and then you go home crying every time.
Yeah.
Or you are up versus them
But-
2-0 and you end up losing.
Yeah, no, that never happened. For Vitality, the good thing is that they kind of failed at Nasa's pick yesterday, because I feel if they played a similar style, they could have actually lost against Fnatic. But now the wake-up call is there. Why don't we put EpicSkillshot on the carry? Let him just straight up carry. Shut down that early Gamsu snowball that Spirit will try to initiate, and suddenly I think Fnatic's strategy will come falling down, because in addition to that, they won't get the power picks that Giants so kindly left open for them.
We hope they won't get the same picks. I mean, I want to see Spirit on different picks. Yes, he can pick the Gragas, but it's just not as impactful in the early game as the Lee Sin.
We will see what happens. And also at the end of the day, we'll be joined on the desk by none other than H2K's Odoamne. We'll be throwing him right in the deep end. So send your questions for the OP top laner at LOL Esports with the hashtag AskOdoamne, and we'll find out what you want to know later today. You guys excited for that? Do you want to ask anything?
I want to ask him about his Ramos mechanics.
Okay.
You know, how long it took him to master that very, very hard to play champion.
We'll find out. And as we approach the playoffs, we also have to look towards the Spring Promotion Tournament. And for a closer look at the journey to the LCS stage, we're going to check in with James Stress O'Leary.
Thank you very much, Sharks. And before we get to the promotion tournament, we have to go through the Challenger Series finals, all-important matchup coming next week. And looking at Challenger in general, we wanted to take a look at some of the players that joined this split into the LCS from Challenger, and some of the players that maybe we can look forward to seeing next split on their respective teams. So the obvious place to start for players that joined this split would be in the mid lane, and it would be with G2's Perkz. This guy has been making a name for himself here in Europe. He's been one of the absolute best laners. You can see all of his stats here. Has been tearing apart even some of the long-standing competition we've had here in Europe, and has been looking really good doing it. He's been instrumental in a lot of G2's wins, bringing in picks early into the season. The Corki, he really made his own in the early weeks of this season. So his effect on G2 has led them right to the top, along with a lot of team play from the team as well. They've all been doing well, but a player that had a lot of hype coming into this split, unfortunately, is tied to Perkz' performance, and that is Splyce's mid laner, and that is Senkux. Everybody talked about these two together, and the story hasn't been the same for Senkux. In Challenger, we saw him destroying opponents in the middle lane, really having solid performances, but between Splyce not performing so great and the odd off game here and there for Senkux, he hasn't been able to show us the same kind of level consistently that we came to expect from him. Yes, he had a couple of games. The LeBlanc game with his quadruple kill showed us what Senkux can do. And after a win yesterday for Splyce, he's hoping that another split in the LCS will allow Senkux, the young mid laner, to settle himself into his role. And maybe we'll see some more from him in the summer split. Finally, we wanted to take a look down at the bottom lane, another G2 player, and that is the support player of Hybrid. He's been pretty much awesome on his Braum. If you've let him have Braum, G2 have been destroying their opponents. 7-1 coming into this week. He's been by far and away the best support that's come into the league this split. And I'm looking forward to seeing him now as we go through week 8 and week 9. Those are the old crop of Challenger Series players, the ones that have made names for themselves. Let's look at who's going to be playing in the finals and who you can look forward to seeing perhaps in the LCS next split. And the first name is one that you're going to recognize. If you've watched Worlds for the past few years, Holy Phoenix is an AD carry that from the Turkish region has made a name for himself on some of the biggest stages we have here in League of Legends. And you know, he formerly played in the TCL. He's come over to Europe now into the Challenger Challenger Series. And, you know, Huma, they won this past week. They got the win under their belt against Inspire. And Holy Phoenix, while this week's performances haven't looked so good for him, all throughout the regular split, he was putting up great performances in the AD carry role, on the Kalista, on the Lucian, really tearing apart some bottom lanes. And I'm excited to see what such an experienced player can do against the likes of Reckless, Forgiven, and some of the other experienced AD carries we have here in Europe on a regular basis, if he can make it through the promotion tournament. From an experienced player to a young player, one that we've only seen 3 games in Challenger, and that is Kadril from the Copenhagen Wolves. Hailing from the United Kingdom, 3 games in the semi-finals under his belt and a 19 KDA to go with it. He plays a lot of Twisted Fate, a lot of Lulu, any kind of mid laner that can teleport to other lanes and look to snowball some of the rest of his carries. He had a great performance, very young player, and I'm excited to see what he can do as well in on the big stage here next week when they take on Huma. The last player we want to look at is a name that Challenger ranked players may see a lot. If you find yourself ever up against Sir Nukes a lot, he was hovering around that #1 spot on the EUS Challenger ladder for a very long time, and early in the split was playing a lot of Trundle. He started bringing us a few more picks, the Braum, the Morgana, those kind of picks in the semi-finals. Really impressive performance on them as well. But the interesting thing about Sir Nukesalat actually is this little stat here. 1.27 wards per minute is by far and away the highest Challenger ward rate that we have, and actually is above average even for EU LCS support. So if you can keep warding that much through the finals, maybe into LCS, we may have another star in our hands from the support role. But we'll get another look at all of these players and the rest of the teams on the path to pro next Tuesday when they go at it in the EUCS Spring Finals. It's going to be Huma versus the Copenhagen Wolves in a best-of-5 to get that seeding for the promotion tournament. That's going to take place Tuesday, March 15th, 6 p.m. Central European time. But let's change the focus back to the LCS. I'm going to give it back to the analysts so they can talk about our first matchup of the day.
Thank you, Stress, and we'll all be there covering the Challenger Finals on Tuesday.
Yep, we'll all be there. Just to touch on what Stress said, I really like Sir Nukes a lot. Like playing with him, he's a pretty chill guy overall, never tilts really. And he plays a mean fiddlesticks off-roll or Nuno, so if we see the fiddle come in, that's the return. I'm sure
Triple sliding in that he's Challenger still. That's what he's trying to say. He knows the
Of course I'm still Challenger.
Actually, of course he's still
Actually, I'm Master right now because I think I went on a bit of a tilting spree.
All right.
Cut the camera and just
Never
move
lucky.
it over
Let's
here.
go back to...
Anyway,
that's
LCS,
right.
actual Challenger players.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the first match of the day featuring the fresh out of Challenger G2, although, you know, they have earned their marks here so far, and up against Giants, who are dangerously close to the spring promotion tournament. Actually, they are unable to get that 7th spot, so they are working for seeding now. Giants yesterday, not the best start. Their new lineup got dismantled by Fnatic, 8.8k down at 20 minutes. And, well, it was again Xpepi that didn't show up and not the other members. Of course, gelling is an issue.
Yeah, obviously he didn't get much help in the mid lane, but I feel like we've seen it before from Xpepi in there. He's not been performing as well as we have seen from the past few seasons with Giants. Then again, if your team is falling apart around you, it's obviously very difficult to perform. He's a very emotional player as well. So I think he probably just wants this split to end and then hopefully re-qualify for summer and then kind of start all over.
Yeah, he didn't get much help drafting-wise either. That Victor, for me, was a terrible pick into the enemy composition. Doesn't do well later in the game because Braum counters it anyways. And then in the Corki matchup, a player like Pepinero, you shouldn't put in like a gently losing matchup because it'll snowball out of control. And then he went for that one more wave where suddenly the pack...
The classic.
I need 50 gold. I guess I do one more wave. Suddenly Corki comes in with the package. I mean, there's a global sound emote. There's a reveal in the base when you pick up the package. You know how long it takes for him to walk mid, yet he still died to it. So that was a mistake that we can't really forgive from Xpepi.
Overall pick and ban phase was just a mess from Giants. They didn't even scout Fnatic very clearly, gave them all the picks they wanted, and then picked full scaling themselves. And like you have no choice.
Yeah, they'll have to make some changes going up against G2. Again, a very strong mid lane matchup, obviously. And yesterday, they just showed as a team that they are picking things up along the way. They are starting to play smarter, and that definitely shows when you can take down a team like Vitality.
I mean, sure, Vitality has great macro play, and G2 is trying to learn as much as possible there. They still have their own play style, build around these very aggressive moves here, and they perform so well when they can actually play aggressive. So if they don't fall too far behind early on, we see them play well in a game like this, and they caught, obviously, G2 off guard quite a few times. Oh, sorry, Vitality off guard quite a few times.
Yeah, G2 show that their biggest strength is not being afraid to pull the trigger, but also not blindly opting in a team fights at least. Because there were a couple situations where we could have seen an explosive team fight in the middle lane, but they actually didn't opt in for that. It was only when Vitality entered these jungle skirmishes or these choke points that they really got punished by G2 Esports' composition, and G2 Esports waited long enough to make that happen. They still need to work on the bigger picture, macro strategy, and stuff like that, but as for a team fighting team, they're very impressive. I really liked the picks and bans that come with it. You know, a lot of crowd control effects. They make the game a lot easier, and it showed. They, for me, took the game deservingly against Vitality.
And one thing I really, really love about G2, and it's something very few teams have here in Europe, is I feel like they have enough individual playmakers who's not afraid to kind of pull the trigger if needed, especially late game. The game yesterday, Trick made the game-winning play, and we didn't even get to see it in the game because we were in a replay, but look at this here. It's just Trick walking around Janan, and he catches him out. He's actually going for Nuke Dog at first, knocks him into the team. He's not afraid to say, you know what, if I miss this one, we might lose the game, because they just lost the team fight already. And the best part about this is even the fact that Janan actually had a fine position on the map, because he could see 4 members of G2. Trick then does the unexpected. Boom, body slam flash, knocks him in, wins the game.
Did he auto-attack in between the body slam
He
flash?
did not.
He did not, and I think that's the most important thing to remember.
We saw him yawning there. He wants to get into the game, and the players are ready, so we should get into the game. Teams are about ready. We're going to head inside and check out today's action. And on the way, Godfred tells us what he's looking out for in that rematch versus G2.
Whenever you play against them, you are always afraid of Kikis being there, or like they coordinate stuff pretty well, at least when we played against them. I think that's one of the biggest like fears I have when playing against them, that they will like coordinate as a team better than us.